Hey everyone, this is H10 Hanshin Tigers English News. I am T-Ray, the main host of the show, and with me is Sanjay. How you doing, brother?
Aloha, brother T Ray. How's it?
How's it? So for some of you, you might be hearing or seeing this before you actually listen to the podcast that we just recorded. But for us, this comes after the main course. This is kind of the dessert, if you will. And so we are here at the end of August. The Olympics are over and we're back to NPB. But as some of you might know, if you follow me on the interwebs, I was at the Olympics. And so we're just going to kind of hash that out a little bit. Sanjay is going to ask me some questions because he's dying to know some things, and maybe you are as well. And so I'm going to kind of sit back and wait for questions to be asked, and I'll just talk and talk. So take it away, Sanjay.
All right, thanks for the intro. Yeah. So this is what happened. Just for the people who don't know the exact sequence of events, I'm sitting here in Honolulu watching the gold medal game, or getting ready to watch it. I think it was even before the game started, and I get a message on my phone with a picture from T-Ray, and it's a picture of Yokohama Stadium. I'm like, holy cow, what's this all about? Are you there? And he goes, yep. I said, wait, well, what's going on? What's going on? So how about we start with that? How did that happen?
Okay, so I honestly was anti-Olympics right from the start. I didn't think that Tokyo should even have bid for it back in 2012, 2013, whatever. And then even when they were talking about should we have it or cancel it or postpone it, I was like, no reason to have it. This is ridiculous. So I was not in favor of the Olympics at all. But then in February maybe of this year, my wife's friend um, heard about a job opening, and the job was to be a driver for the media for a certain media corporation. And basically that means you're taking them from their hotels to the media center, which was down in kind of near Odaiba in Tokyo, and then taking them to whatever venue they were covering for the games. Anyways, my wife's friend got the job, and they were still looking for more people. And she was like, you know what? T-Ray would be, well, she is my real name, would be really good for this job. And so I contacted them. They hired me. And there you go. I found myself in Tokyo from about July the 18th until August the 10th.
How cool is that?
And yeah, every
So
day that
yeah.
was my job. I was driving the media to and from their hotel to the media center, sometimes to venues, things like that. I don't know Tokyo, so driving there was a little bit of an adventure for me. But yeah, it was the experience of a lifetime.
You're a better man than I, man. I can't drive in Tokyo anymore, man. That is just so crazy. Hats off to you for doing that in an unfamiliar city.
Well, I will tell you this much. If it had been a regular Olympics, I think I would have been crazy to have taken the job because there would have been way more cars on the road and way more pedestrians on the road to watch for. And it just would have been a lot more chaotic than it was. So I'm kind of thankful. Like, don't get me wrong here. I'm not thankful for the pandemic, but I'm kind of thankful that I got to do this job under those conditions because it would have been a lot harder in normal conditions for sure.
Fair enough, fair enough. And because it was your wife's friend that told you about this, then presumably your wife was okay with you being there.
Well, see, that's the kind of interesting thing is that um, I'm the type of person that like I tend to not go for things like this because I would have said like I would have told my wife's friend straight up, oh, you know what, that sounds really cool, but I've got this thing called family, and I really can't be away from them for that long. Like that's just putting too much on my wife, and I wouldn't have even asked my wife if I could do it. But my wife, since it was her friend that kind of introduced the whole thing, she was like, "You got to do this," and I was like, "Really? Okay."
Oh, that's
So I
cool.
did. Yeah.
That's
So that's
awesome.
I had full support from my wife, which was just awesome. I couldn't have done it otherwise. Yeah. But it was hard just being away from them for as long as I
Sure, of
was.
course, yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about the game. So I do know that you told me that you were wearing your uh, super Hanshin Tiger fan vest,
Hmm.
or fan vest, really, and literally that. And so I was able to find you on the screen here in Honolulu and take a screenshot of it and then send it to you saying, "Is this you? Is this you?" And you're like, "Yep, that's me." So that was
Yeah.
really wild. That this whole situation of me in Hawaii, you in Yokohama, and
Wearing a
and
Tiger's
we're
vest.
wearing Tiger's vest, and we're like shooting all this stuff through the internet, as it were.
Yeah.
So tell me about that experience.
Okay, so first of all, like I brought the Tigers vest to Tokyo kind of on a whim, knowing that I was going into enemy territory, if you will. But I also know that this vest is going to keep me a bit cooler and prevent me from getting heat stroke or whatever. And I was like, well, it might come in handy. I brought it. I wore it almost every day, and it got a lot of attention. So first of all, before we get to the game, I don't know if I've talked about this very much, but it got the attention of Rami-chan, which was just like the hugest thing ever for me. I was super stoked about that. I happened to see him at the media center one day, and I was wearing the vest, and our eyes met, and I just kind of said good afternoon or whatever to him. We were both kind of busy, and I didn't want to like come off as fanboy. And he pointed to it and he's like, I like your Hanshin Tigers vest. And I was like, oh, then I knew for sure it was him, right? And so then we could kind of exchange pleasantries. Well, we're now in touch, which is really cool. So anyways, that was one of the first benefits of wearing the vest. But anyways, I wore it everywhere I went. And the reason I wore it to the game was partly to stay cool, and it was partly to be noticed, if you will. But I wasn't necessarily wearing it with the hopes of being on TV. I was wearing it with the hopes that maybe one of the three Tigers players on the team would notice that there was Tigers memorabilia in the stands. Because keep in mind, I mean, there weren't that many people at the game, right? It wasn't completely empty, but it definitely was not to capacity. And so I did stand out even then. So I wore it, and then I happened to find when I got in, and I had, because I was a driver for the media, I actually had a media pass. So as far as security was concerned, I was media. I wasn't just a lackey for the media. And and that really played to my benefit. So I could sit wherever I wanted to. It wasn't like they said, hey, like go sit up in the top row or anything. So I got in there. I was a little bit early, and the very first row, or the very seat like right above the Samurai Japan bench, was open. And I was like, I'm gonna sit here until someone kicks me out. And nobody did.
That's awesome.
So then I was like, it's on. Like, I'm wearing this vest, and I'm gonna make sure that I'm noticed. Not for TV again. It wasn't for getting, and it wasn't even for getting necessarily attention. It was just I thought it would be kind of cool for the Tigers players, right? So anytime that I
Sure,
saw one of
sure.
them nearby, and this happened with Umeno. He was like the warm-up catcher when Kai was getting his equipment on. You know what I mean? Between innings, he
Yeah,
was the
yeah.
warm-up catcher for the pitchers. And so when he finished doing his warm-up catching and Kai was ready to be the regular catcher and Umeno was walking back towards the bench, I would always make sure that I stood up and kind of just pretended I was stretching. And so I would stretch really big and wide, and I'd turn around so the big Tigers logo on the back was just in plain sight. Remember, I'm right above the bench. So, I mean, he
So
couldn't have missed it.
subtle. You are so
So
subtle.
mission accomplished in that sense. So that was like kind of one of the highlights. And I don't know if it was him that noticed it or somebody else, but a reporter from Yukon Fuji came up to me during the game. He's like, hey, he said, Genki no Tigers senshi ga ki ni narimasu, right? Meaning one of the active Tigers players is wondering who the heck you are. And I was like,
That's
well, that's pretty
awesome.
cool. So I asked him, like, who is it? And he's like, oh, I can't tell you that. That's a secret. So I kind of feel like maybe it might have been Umeno or Iwazaki or Aoyagi. And he couldn't tell me that he was talking to them during the game. Maybe. I don't
Maybe.
know.
Okay. Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
But
Yeah.
even if it
All right.
wasn't, it's just still kind of cool that one of the current Tigers players noticed me. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that you showed me that tweet that the guy had tweeted out,
Yeah.
and it sounded totally legit. Somebody from the media was the guy that, or somebody with the media pass was the guy that does the Hanshin Tigers English news.
Yeah.
So hey, you're legit media and you got a media pass.
Yeah.
At least that's the way I would take it.
Yeah. And it would have been nice if that was the case. It wasn't, but that's okay. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
So
mildly surprising that that's not the case, but okay.
right. Yeah. So it's cool though. I got to meet do you know Jason Koskry? Writes for
Yeah,
the Japan Times.
he writes for the Japan Times. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I actually I texted him and Jim Allen because I thought maybe Jim would be at the game too. And I was like, hey, you guys here? And Jason was, Jim wasn't. So Jason's
Oh,
like,
okay.
yeah, what are you doing there? And I was like, come find me, whatever, right? So he found me real easily because of the vest again.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so
There you go.
we shot the breeze a little bit before the game as well, which is kind of cool. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, it's really
Yeah.
neat. And then here's another kind of side story, just an interesting one that I thought was interesting. Anyways, I'm sitting there and I during the game I'm kind of looking around. There's people kind of around me, and so I just thought like, well, maybe I'll just kind of mix it up a little bit. And I talked to the guy beside me. I was like, hey, good game so far, isn't it? And it was like third inning, fourth inning, whatever. He's like, yeah, good game. Japanese guy, right?
Mhm.
Like, yeah. And I could see he was kind of struggling with English, but he could speak it a little bit. And then as the game went on, I just kept kind of looking over to my side, and I was like, this guy looks a lot like Takashi Toritani. A lot.
Oh,
And I looked kind of more at his body, like just to see if he was like athletic or not. He sure enough, I mean, this guy was pretty athletic. And he looked like he was maybe about 40 years old. And I was like, I might have inadvertently talked to Toritani. But then one time he had some food, he took off his mask, and I was like, oh, that's not Toritani. Oh, dang it. It
oh,
was a
okay.
close call, though. I was like, oh, I can't believe it. I really thought that I was like sitting 2 seats away from like a Tigers legend, but I wasn't.
Close but no cigar.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, what other nuggets can you share from that? I know that you're probably under NDAs or something and not able to say things, but I'm loving this story.
Yeah, there's a certain amount that I kind of have to keep under wraps or whatever. But like one of the things that I enjoyed, and I put this in an article on the site, was just listening to the chatter of the players, and especially Ryoya Kurihara of the Hawks was the ultimate cheerleader, and just like after every pitch, whether we were batting or pitching, he was saying something, and it was always just like really cool. And I thought to myself, like, can you imagine if you were doing your job and somebody was doing that to you? Like, I don't know, you might find it annoying, but you also might think like somebody that's like he's on my team, and no matter what I do, he's approving of it. He's encouraging me to keep on going, keep on doing better. And I just thought it was really cool. So I can imagine like Morishita when he was on the mound, or Senga when he was on the mound and struggling a bit, would have really felt, they could hear his voice very clearly, right? And they would have really
Mhm,
felt like, yeah, I just got to keep on, keep on keeping on. So that was really cool. The other thing is though, like there were other guys that were kind of trying to do the same.
mhm,
And so Kondo of the fighters, he was kind of beside Kuribayashi, and he just kind of seemed like the little sidekick. And his voice was about half of Kurihara's volume, and his comments were about half of the like impact, I would say. But it was kind of cute to see him trying to be the
uh-huh.
encourager, but he just really didn't really produce near as much as Kurihara. So and I was hoping to hear Umeno, but I didn't really hear his voice very much at all. So maybe he was, I don't know, maybe he was kind of too busy analyzing stuff just in case
Mhm,
he got called into the game as a catcher or whatever.
mhm.
So maybe he wasn't as vocal, but Kurihara definitely was.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
So one thing that I just read about Umeno and the Olympic experience is that hopefully this pays dividends for Hanshin down the line, because he said that he caught Tanaka Imakun a couple times,
Mhm.
and that the prep work that Tanaka did before his starts was just incredible. The discipline, the amount of time he put in, he did not slack off anywhere, didn't cut any corners. And Umeno thought that, man, this guy who pitched in major leagues um, comes back and is pitching against, well, minor leaguers effectively, and he's still putting in the time, putting in the work, attention to detail. And that's something that Umeno can, take with him as he prepares for the stretch run for the Tigers this year.
So that's something that I think, yeah, all three players benefited from. And I think like Aoyagi came back, and obviously, he's got the gold medal, but he's also got the shame of being probably the pitcher that gave up the most runs in the whole
Yeah, I
tournament
think so. Yeah,
among the Japanese pitchers, right? Like
yeah.
he's the leader in that. So he clearly didn't have the performance that he wanted to. And then Iwazaki, he pitched some, but not a whole lot. He had that one kind of crucial inning in the gold medal game.
Yeah.
But all these guys are going to come back just definitely inspired, and they probably learned some really important lessons from this as well. And so, um, just as a side note of something that maybe you saw, Iwazaki was on the Heroes podium the other day when he got his first save of the season, as we were waiting for Suarez to come back. And the hero interview was done by a Sun TV announcer, Kosuke Hashimoto, and he said, "Hey, tell us about the Olympic experience." And he was like, "Yeah, it was good to be there." And then that was it. And then he's like, "Well, I know that you probably can't say much, but can you tell us like just one thing that you learned from your time there?" And Iwazaki did not say a single word. Like he just kind of just like, and that was it. And it was quite funny, but it was also very typical of Iwazaki. And I feel like, you know what, he probably did learn a lot, and he just doesn't want to reveal any of his secrets. I think that's just kind of the type of person that he is.
Yeah,
So,
that works for
and
me.
yeah, I mean, I'm the type that I would love to reveal more about my time at the Olympics, stuff like that. And so, if people out there, if you've got any questions, if you want to ask them down here in this video, you can leave a comment. I'll answer the ones I can, and I'll Iwazaki the ones that I can't. So feel free to drop me a note there as well. Also, of course, as always, we love having you subscribe to the channel and yada yada, blah blah blah. Watch our videos and stuff like that. Stay in touch. Thank you so much for the interview, Sanjay. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for letting me do this. I learned a lot. I really enjoyed it.
Great. Good. Well, everyone, have a great day and let's go Tigers.